Hi everyone, it's Professor Fernandez. I'm here to talk a little bit about your structure for your next essay. It's not really a title. I'm calling it here as part of the file, the literary and real life analysis. But it's really just tying what you see in the story as far as argument to what's going on in the real world today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you the structure, which should be eerily familiar. It's very similar to the literary essay that you have written. The only thing is that it's adding kind of what's happening in the real world. So a couple of things about this essay. It's not about trying to find the real life version of Harrison Bergeron or the real life version of whatever story. You're trying to find the real life version of the argument, and that's completely different than saying I'm going to try to find somewhere in the world where a Harrison Bergeron-esque world is happening. That is not what I'm asking you to do. Think about what the argument in it is and how that argument is showing up in other places of the world currently, not in the past, not 5 years ago, within the year, within the last 12 months. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I went ahead and did the heading like you're supposed to do the heading, keeping in mind that the professor's name is Professor Fernandez, not first name, not first initial. Professor is first, then it's Fernandez second. Then of course with the title of the essay. The title of the essay is not like essay number 2 or literary and real life analysis. It's the title is part of the paper, so give it a good title. So of course you have the introduction here with your thesis, and remember you're looking at at 4 of the 5 elements of fiction, but you're actually going to expand on 3 of them, because remember, theme is argument. So don't give me a man versus world theme. That's not going to work here. This is a little different. Okay, so a sample thesis here is that we're looking at the setting, the plot, and the point of view in a particular story. This is, if you want to just take the structure of this thesis and literally plug and play, do so. So you're going to identify the piece that you're going to write about, and you're going to put it in quotation marks because that is the correct way of doing it, and you're going to make sure the title is capitalized correctly. You're going to write the author's name. More than likely you would have already in your intro have already introduced the writer. So if it's not the first time you're introducing the writer, then you're going to use their last name. But if it's the first time you're introducing the writer, then you'll use their entire name. Then you're going to say what you're looking at, setting, plot, and point of view for this example. You can look at character and plot and setting, and you can look at whatever you want to look at. And then you can talk, then you say what the argument is. Remember, 5 to 7 words. It is arguable. It is not a question, and it's not a fragment. It's almost a full statement essentially. So this right here is the argument that I'm presenting here in this example. Okay, so I'm using Harrison Bergeron. I'm using these 3 things to analyze, and I am using this argument. I'm saying that these 3 things build up to that argument. Okay, so a thing about it here is that you do not want to use the same story that you used last time. You want to use a different story. So if you used Harrison Bergeron in a previous essay, you can't use it for this essay, because really what you don't want to do is turn in the same essay with 3 additional paragraphs. Why? Don't do that. So you're going to want a different story. Let's see. You're also going to want to look at this structure here. This part here, your first body paragraph, should look familiar. It's the exact same structure of the literary essay. I literally copied and pasted. So if you want a little bit more explanation about what this paragraph is doing and what you're supposed to do in this paragraph, go back to the other video that explains this particular essay structure. So your first body paragraph is going to be that essay structure. It's going to be a pretty hefty paragraph. It's not going to be a short paragraph at all. It'll be pretty hefty. Then here comes your second body paragraph, and this is where you will talk about that first article that you found. Now, a reminder of what it says in your assignment sheet. You're allowed to use a news article or opinion article, but you're not allowed to use anything like a movie review or a book review. So that, and you have to use the pieces, or you have to use the databases. So you can't just Google something, right? It's got to come from a source in the database. So then your second body paragraph is going to be about the first article, because you need 3 to 5 articles. And you're probably wondering, wait, I can understand using 3, but what do you mean 3 to 5? I'll show you here in a second. So the first article here is that is something that you found that is kind of talks about or reflects, right? Reflects the theme, or sorry, reflects the argument that is found in Harris and Bergeron. So for us in this example, equality isn't the answer to that piece, it's equity. So somewhere in the world, something's happening with equality, or something's happening with like, maybe like equality is being fought for, but it's not really working well. Or maybe it's people are working on equity rather than equality. Maybe they're kind of advancing their thoughts of that. Somewhere in the world it's happening, whether it's happening in this country or in another country, whether it's happening in a business, or it's happening in a school, or it's happening in sports, right? So it's pretty wide open. Again, not a book review or a movie review. And you can use news articles and opinion pieces. So that opens it up a lot here. So you're going to summarize the article. You're going to tell me who wrote it, where it was published, and kind of what this article is about. Do not do this in 2 sentences. I really want you to talk to me about what the article is about. What is happening? Who are the major players? What is the conflict? And any context you can put in it. So, for example, here's where those additional articles can come in handy. Say that you found a good example, right? And you're kind of not sure what the context is. You're going to do a little bit more research. Like, how did this come about? Why are the major players the major players? Why is this happening now? Like, what happened a little bit in the background to bring us to this point? So that's where you're going to have the additional sources come in to help you. If you need more than 5 sources, definitely send me an email. I'm probably not going to say no to the additional 5 sources, because you may need more than one source to put something in context, right? So there you go. It's that's how you use those additional sources. And so after you do all that, then you're going to discuss the article. This is in the same paragraph, right? So you see how this is in the second body paragraph. This is in the same paragraph. You're going to transition here, and I should probably write transition. So you'll have a transitional phrase, right? That will transition, that shows the reader, okay, I'm done talking about the summary. I'm going to talk to you. I'm now going to discuss this article. And so some of the things that you can use to discuss this article are the parallels to the argument of the story, not to the story, but to the argument of the story. So don't say, for example, Harris and Bergeron, this particular organization also gives handicaps like they give handicaps. That's not what I'm looking for. Maybe like the argument is, it's not about equality, it's about equity, and how you were talking about, or how Harris and Bergeron is talking about total equality, and total equality going all the way all the way to periphery. They took it to an extreme. This particular organization or country or group or sports entity or business entity or educational entity has decided to go in the other direction and talk more about equity or whatever, right? So you're going to talk about the parallel. What makes you say this? And what are the events in the story and in the real life that's similar or different? Now you get to talk about like things that you see in the story that you see there, right? It may not be direct, right? At that point, it may be kind of more indirect things. Maybe it's not the fact that they're wearing handicaps, where it's the thing of the apathy to the handicaps that is similar. You know, they may, the real life world example may not have handicaps, but they have that same feeling that George and Hazel had, like, we're doing this for the greater good type of feel. And so that's some things that you can talk about, right? And of course, anything that you conclude from the similarities and differences, and any concluding thoughts that you have. You may not have any concluding thoughts here because you would have had some concluding thoughts from the similarities and differences, and that's perfectly fine. I included that there in case there was something else you wanted to point out that was very important. Third body paragraph, you're going to talk about the next thing in your thesis, and in our thesis example here, it's plot. That's the second thing we're talking about, and it's the same paragraph as before. Then fourth paragraph, you talk about the second article. You summarize the article, you talk about all that, you discuss the article, do all that. Again, if you need to put something in context and there's not enough context in the article that you're using, you'll bring in another article. Not necessarily to replace that article, it's that article to kind of give you some background. Yes, you're going to use in-text citation for that as well. Fifth body paragraph, point of view. Again, going back to our thesis, we're going to talk about point of view and how it's used to build this argument. And then there should be a sixth one, and I apologize for that. And then you should have a sixth one. The second article should be the third article here. So you'll have this correct when you get it for yourself. Oh, there it is. Okay. Then you have the sixth body article. Same thing. Summarize the article. Who wrote it? Discuss the article. The whole nine, concluding thoughts, the same thing over and over again. And then your conclusion is only slightly different in that you want to tell us what your conclusions are based on kind of this analysis that you're talking about. Remember, this entire essay is in third person. It's not in first person, so you're not going to say, I believe this, or I think this. Instead, you're going to want to use those type of words that say something along the lines of, the reader believes this, or the reader is made to believe this, or the audience thinks that this, right? So you want this in third person, not in first person. And then you're going to tie it all up in a little bow. And then, of course, I'm going to go ahead and put this here. Your works cited page. Now, your works cited page is going to be a separate sheet here, and what you're going to do is that you're going to click Insert, Page Break, and it'll make it another page. I'm not going to do it here because I'm putting this here as a reminder to do your works cited page in the same file as your essay, right? So that's just here as a reminder, but if you're watching this, you're literally going to hit Insert, Page Break, and they will have it'll break the page to another page. Let me go ahead and do this. See how now there's another page here, and your works cited is right there. Right, works cited is right there, and that's where you begin works cited. And it's the same font, the same size as the rest of the paper. It is not underlined. It is not bolded. The only formatting thing you need to do is center it and capitalize it. And you're just capitalizing the W and the C. That's all you're doing. And then you're starting your works cited page. Okay, so again, the works cited is here. I put it on the page here only as a reminder for you to do your works cited page. If it's on a separate sheet of paper and you're turning it in separately, it's like you didn't do it at all. And of course, that doesn't do well. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Bye, guys.